Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, CCMB, Hyderabad, and Center for Ecological Studies, Ecological Sciences at IISc Bangalore. He is in the process of finishing his doctoral work on the notion of species and their biogeographic implications. His interests are now not just limited to ecology, but ranges from social sciences, humanities to philosophy. He was Director, Center for Educational and Social Studies, CESS, Bangalore, to initiate his work on social sciences. He was also founder, fellow at Development Foundation, Bangalore. He has also collaborated with many people in India and also has a good relationship with people in India and also in Europe. And his studies are broadly under the framework called Comparative Science of Cultures. Now he is going to address us.
So good evening, everybody. I'm sort of aware of the kind of ideas that you are familiarized from morning, where various speakers have tried to give a snapshot of how science work, how do you look at the world around you using certain concepts and notions which are embedded within the practices of science. And I've heard a part of the last session discussions where there was an application component where people are trying to think and engage. In some sense, how do we really address certain crises that we see as a consequence of technological innovation? One of them being urbanization and waste management being one of the critical questions. Now to rethink about it, I'm not going to really, even though I come from the fraternity of scientists, my life has been, for more than a decade, has been seriously engaging with the practice of science, hard science. What I'm interested in doing today is nothing to do with the kind of science that you would expect, like natural sciences or physical science, but I would want you to travel with me to the world of thinking about science of human beings. It is important to think in a completely radically different way, because all that I could witness in the last session was about how do we solve the waste management crisis in Bangalore, is one question that last few questions that I heard about was done. And the answers were very simple, that BBMP is not functioning, people are not participating, we don't have mechanisms, we don't have processes, etc. But at the end of the day, in some sense, society is not really taking an issue of something called waste very seriously. Now to reformulate this into something very interesting. Now let's assume that we wanted to put an end to this crisis. How do we make waste management a series of action being operational? If you want to keep the city clean, you want many people to participate in this action of people participating and removing the garbage out of the town. Now, of course, it requires a lot of technological input, it requires a lot of theoretical understanding, it requires a lot of bureaucratic establishment, etc., etc. But I'm not interested in that part. I'm only interested in saying that all of us know, being residents in Bangalore, all of us are hit by this problem of garbage. We don't know how to dispose of the problem of garbage. Now, what at the end of the day one can simply conclude that people don't adequately participate in managing the crisis of garbage in Bangalore city. I mean, this is a very simple thing. You can say it is a India systems kelsa madala, it's a systemic error. You can say hundreds of things. But see, this is symptomatic of a large number of problems that Indians do face. See, if you look at the newspapers in last 3-4 days and look at the electronic media, you know that there is this huge hue and cry about the rape cases that are occurring around us. Once again, the crisis is about government is not acting. There are bad actions that are being conducted by people. So it also culminates in the crisis of action. Now, let's go to simpler examples than this bigger urgent crisis. The simpler crisis would be of this kind. See, we know there are a lot of rules and regulations to manage the traffic in Bangalore city, right? And all of us are aware who have two-wheelers, most of us do have two-wheelers and some of you are using four-wheelers. We are aware the traffic rules are meant for our betterment. Okay, but we will see. We will always be able to make sure that we will find some shortcut so that we can skip the signal. We will violate the one way and we will try to reach out. There is some kind of a problem that we have in terms of following certain actions in a particular way. Which is of course is not a crisis, when people come and make comparison between developed part of the world and developing part of the world. People they say, look at in Europe, everything is extremely systematic. People go to office, they do their duties properly, they conduct a fine. But you come to India, it's all chaotic. You don't know what to do. So it appears that there is an apparent crisis of how to conduct actions amongst ourselves. So in this background, what I intend to do in next 45 minutes or half an hour is not to really give you a set of prescription saying how to act. That's not my job. Neither I am interested in saying that this is where exactly the solution to the problem lies. Neither of that kind. As student of philosophy, I am interested in taking up today job of a philosopher who would not offer any solution to anything, but rather tries to engage with everything that exists around. He doesn't do anything new. But yet you must remember, every time when the crisis comes, it's only philosophers who gives way to find out new solutions. Of course, they don't offer any solutions. In that sense, philosophers are most useless creatures on this earth. But unfortunate part is that if you don't have them, you can't really solve their problems. So that's why they're inevitable. So at times people call them necessary evils. But anyway, you can't help it. And I try to take that role today and try to introduce certain ideas about what kind of actions that we need to think about. How do we think about making people act? Because there is a context of society. There is an idea that science has a lot of solutions. Science can produce a number of solutions. But the only thing is they don't get operationalized because people do not use them. Now, to make people use, in some sense, to make people act in a way in which the science will become beneficial to human society, what would be those ideas which are required? So my job here today would be to sort of throw you into a large number of confusions which neither I have an answer nor you have an answer. You will have an answer, but you might end up finding an answer someday or the other. To throw you into those kind of confusion top, where you start thinking about it, by doing what we can make people act. What does it mean to say that people do act? How can we think about human actions? Not just that, it's also in some sense gives you a window to think and reflect about how are you conducting yourself. I am not giving any moral speech. I am not giving a discourse on Bhagavad Gita here. Of course, large number of ideas that I am going to say can be traced back to some of these texts, but I am not interested in telling you any one of them. There are better scholars than me who can come and illuminate you on some of those texts. That's not my business. So let me start with some of these fundamental ideas. First, where is the lab? Who is up here? First line. Now, let's start with a very, very big thing. That there is something called human world within the planet that is inhabited by a large number of organisms. Now, in that many things are unique to human beings. So there are many things which are unique to other species too. There is nothing new about it. But there is something which makes us completely unique is that we start making sense of things around us. It doesn't mean that other organisms do not make sense of it, but we don't have any clue on how do they make sense of it. What we have access to is that this is the way in which, because we have language, we can communicate, we know how do we make sense of things around the world. So that's why we can talk about the flight crash that happened in Ukraine to rape incidents to everything. You have your own stories about why it could have happened, what should be done, etc. So there are different ways in which we make sense of things that happen around us. And we describe the world in many ways. Now, one of the principal way of describing the human world that I am fascinated with is that there is nothing other than actions in the human world. For that matter, there is nothing other than actions in any other organism's world. Now you can reconstruct you think, thinking is an action. You talk, talking is an action. You walk, you sleep. Everything that you do in your affair from morning to evening, from birth to death, is all about series of action. Now, what you do is you use something like language to make coherent patterns and structures out of the whole bunch of these independent actions. So if you look at what is all about human life is about bundle of actions. And this is my favorite way, that is, I intend to describe the human world. So now, there is nothing special about actions because actions are properties of all living creatures on this earth. There are many kinds of action. But if you come to human actions, the way in which humans perform action, there are voluntary actions, there are involuntary actions. I need not give lecture about it. You can go and read in 12th standard textbook about voluntary actions, involuntary actions, etc., etc. It happens. There are also there is this discipline called action science, wherein there is something called standard model, which describes about how people look at action. The standard model says that there are certain necessary ingredients of action, which are about you need an intention, there is willingness and reason, the whole bunch of things. To give you an example, if you want to give a scientific account of what kind of theory of action is, that there is this puzzle about, let's take the example of Bharatanatyam. Now, Bharatanatyam is interesting set of motion. There is action involved. Now, if you look at that motion, one could take a Newton's formula that how motion can be accounted. So you need force and then you need mass and then there exists velocity, acceleration, blah 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 that you are very familiar with. That in case of stone, you want to see a motion. In case of a stone, you have to apply a particular force. And the amount of force that you're going to apply depends on the kind of mass that the stone possesses. Now, in case of performance like Bharatanatyam, where an individual is doing so many things at a time, what is that force which is making this motion happen? It's something that Newtonian theory does not deal with. That's why the action sciences deal it in a very different way. Because Newton's theory is applicable to dead bodies, rigor mortis. So in case of living body, what accounts for the motion that human beings perform or living organism performs cannot be explained by the simple formulation that exists in the Newton's scheme. Go back. Okay. So actions are also in some sense described as stimulus. Actions stimulate other set of actions because you go and slash someone, immediately you will get that becomes a stimulus for him to hit you back. Action is also a response. He hits you back, it becomes a response. There are many things. People talk about actions as behavior. People talk about actions as there are causes which motivate someone to have actions. People say action requires a person who is an agent. Someone has to perform series of actions. And action requires certain kind of beliefs because you need to discriminate about what is a good action, what is not a good action. So it requires certain kind of an understanding of what is right, what is wrong, etc. So go further. So, if you ask, given the long set of introduction that I gave you about why do we need to really think about human action because the kind of problems that we have, but to simply summarize them, we need to think about action very critically because we need to change things around us. Let's say you are living in a house and your room is very dirty and you wanted to have your living space very clean. It essentially demands you to clean it. Cleaning becomes an action. So therefore, you want to change things around you. Maybe change the world around you. But To start with, maybe your living space or whatever you wanted to. And there are moral and ethical concerns. Someone engages in an action like rape, it's a bad thing. So there is a moral and ethical concern. That's why we need to be bothered about how to act in a decent way. If you go to a hotel, people, all of you are familiar. You talk about etiquettes of sitting in a hotel and how to eat in different hotels. Or if you are entering a laboratory, whether you should wear apron, whether you should have uniform, all these kinds of questions that you ask are all about kind of actions that you intend to do. And there are a large number of issues that concerns our human world. Maybe issues like the degrading environment, loss of forests around us, depleting water resources. All of them require some kind of action, or maybe by individuals, or maybe group of individuals, maybe by nations, etc. But you need. And you also have this claim recent days, which has become very prevalent in the sense that we need to be very scientific in our approach. But this has been a standard way. That is why we need to be really to be scientific in our day-to-day dealings. It's important to think about actions. And also to say, people claim that you are educated, you need to be rational. You can't engage in an irrational action. So therefore you need to think about action. And simply, for anything and everything to deal with around you, to go about the world that exists around you, you need to be worried about action. Go to the next one. If you look at all this background why you need to, there are also other important reasons why you need to legitimately consider action. For example, there are moral and ethical action, but see the argument that there some action is moral, some action is ethical, do not convince us to act. For example, it is unethical to violate traffic rules is something that all of us, it is illegal to violate traffic rules. Anything illegal is immoral. Therefore, it is an immoral action to violate traffic rule is something that all of us know. I am not saying any Brahma Vidya in this. All of you know, but yet we violate traffic rules. So by just giving a moral and ethical justification does not necessarily mean that we act morally correct way. And there are prescriptions. So people say, see, there is an emerging crisis of water in Bangalore city. So now we can't change the system, but what you can do, how to conserve water. So an individual, how much minimally I use water. These prescriptions are quite fascinating. You Google it out and everybody who comes and gives talk about this conserving wildlife, conserving water, conserving energy would come and say, but at the end of the day, you forget to switch off the light. You forget to turn off the tap. You unnecessarily you would end up using gas. So none of these arguments, the prescriptions of how to be a righteous person in a right way does not convince you to act. There is something much more that is necessary. Okay. Now, alleged benefits. See, for example, people keep telling us when we were students, of course, your parents would be saying the same thing. You should get up early in the morning and read, it is very nice. But we feel it is really difficult to get up early in the morning, 5 o'clock. Who will get up 5 o'clock in the morning? People keep telling us from the day when you get ready for your exams, so that you need not take stress just before the exams. But who cares? No. Everyone, see, this has been a generational issue. That everyone keeps telling their children, you should do this, you should do this, and children don't buy this. There are benefits of doing that. And we acknowledge that there are really benefits of it, but we still don't do it. So the idea of benefits, an external benefit out of doing an action is also not enough motivation. It's not enough to motivate someone to act. And we say it is scientific and it is unscientific. Such kind of classification do exist. For example, someone would say, see, it's very scientific to actually do a lab procedure in this way. But third time you would find shortcuts to do the lab experiment. All of you have done it. I'm sure, I have done it. So all of you have done it. So this mere claim of scientificity is not enough ground for someone to motivate to do certain set of actions. Now we say rational. It's very interesting. I say, see, we know it is not rational to use our bike to go and buy milk every morning. Who will walk half a kilometer? I'll just go and take my bike and get it. It is actually advisable to walk in the morning and buy milk and come back home. But you will not do it. So even these rationality arguments are not sufficient enough to motivate someone into do certain set of actions. Now, go to the next one. We need certain things which are extra. Next slide. Now, problem concerning Indians are quite unique. Now, if you ask about, see, Ganesha festival has come, or some other festival has come. Now, you are very meticulous in participating in that festival, and you want to make sure that you don't miss anything which is important part of the ritual. You will be cribbing about it. It is so tiring to do this. I can't be hungry till 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, all these complaints will be there, and yet you, as far as your rituals are concerned, you are extremely tedious. You don't compromise. So, you are very unhappy to follow certain rituals, but yet you continue to do it. And mostly, see, till we come to our high schools, nobody asked us, "You Ganpati Abba yak madtira nimane?" This question never occurred to us also. Yak madtare andre ನಮ್ಮ ಅಜ್ಜನ ಕಾಲದಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ನಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ನಮ್ಮನೇಲಿ ಹಬ್ಬ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಪ್ಪ, ನಾವು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಅಡುಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, 2 ದಿನ ರಜೆ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, we celebrate it. I mean, it's very fascinating thing for us. So you don't need, I mean, this is something that you seriously do. You know, you consider it worthwhile, you consider it very valuable, and you will be waiting for such occasions. You know, so, but you are actually not really bothered too much about the reasons behind it. I mean, causes behind it, but you just want to simply be part of those festivals, part of a whole bunch of series of actions that you do around. Now, once again, see, there are a whole bunch of ecological prescriptions that Indians have been given. Nobody seems to be aware. For example, Ganga, Namak Pavitra Nadi. Now, if you actually, I don't know how many of you have travelled in the banks of Ganga. I have travelled quite a bit, probably to such a large an extent that none of you could have imagined. But Ganga is one of the dirtiest rivers that you could imagine in India. I mean, you don't feel anything pavitra about that river if you go and have a dip in it. Only if you are in Rishikesh and above, then you feel there is some nice water. Otherwise, there is nothing holy about it. But that doesn't matter to us. ಅದು ಅಷ್ಟು ಪವಿತ್ರವಾದ ನದಿ ನಮಗೆ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, we don't really care about making it very clean to accessible to all of us. These are certain very paradoxical way that Indians offer us challenge. So therefore, to some, no amount of argument which are external to it, no amount of justificatory reason, scientific, rational, etc. are not evoking any actions in us, but there are certain kind of actions which we don't want to compromise on. We would love to participate in it. So if you take these two parallel stories, it tells us very interesting story. It tells us something like this. See, there are certain actions that we do it very seriously. There are certain actions we don't take them seriously. Chalega. So, what makes certain actions to be taken seriously by a set of individuals, and why is that certain actions are not taken seriously is something that we need to understand. If you understand that, it actually answers us two questions. One, see, you have, like the earlier speaker, who was saying what would be an ideal way of getting rid of the garbage problem in Bangalore city. If you want to do that, you should have an idea of by doing what people would take an action seriously. I mean, that's as simple as that. Because we know that in India, people take action seriously, but they don't take all the actions so seriously. Now, what are those actions that they take seriously, and why do they take them seriously? If you understand that, now you will have an idea of saying, how do we make some action that you think is more valuable to be considered seriously by people? I mean, this is the kind of an idea that I wanted to run through. Okay, go to the next one. Now, to do that, see, the question that the contrast that I was offering you from the very beginning, that if you go to Europe, the actions that I was actually complaining that Indians don't take seriously are something that Europeans do take it extremely seriously. And certain important virtues and values that we appreciate of developing part of the world is that, see, look, roads are so clean. See, in US, someone was telling me the story that during the snowfall, If someone walks in front of their footpath and by chance if they have some damage because they had a they just damaged their leg because of the snow and there was a skid, and the house owner actually takes the onus of giving treatment to the person who is being damaged. But in India it doesn't occur so. So there are certain contrasts that you see. So in that part, now I was always making this question of different people of different culture take different actions extremely seriously. Now if you agree with that idea, then there are two important things that we need to ask. So there are some kind of knowledge that we have about action, which I have roughly called as action sciences. And there is some idea that we have about culture. And if we sort of try to clarify these two things and then put our all ideas clubbed together, maybe we will be able to make sense of action. Now, what are the questions of action sciences? Action sciences is interested in knowing what is the nature of human action. Now, it asks the question of if human beings do participate in some kind of an action, what kind of knowledge it generates is the question that people who are bothered about action understand. Now we believe that human actions have some kind of knowledge. To perform action you need to have some kind of knowledge, and that action itself produces some kind of knowledge. Now the process of learning to perform different types of action and so forth, there are different kinds of action, what are the kinds of different actions that they perform, etc., is something is being studied by action sciences. Now culture, to simplify what is an idea of culture, one can simply start off with an idea that culture is a form of life. Indians have a different form of life than Europeans, is something that is very simply understandable. What does culture does to an individual? It helps individuals to deal with the world. Because you inherit certain knowledge about how to respect elders, for example, how to deal with your teachers. These are part of your learnings that you get out of your culture. Therefore, one would expect an intimate relationship between the culture and action. That essentially means that it is not that every human being acts in the same way throughout the world, that different people act differently because they are part of different culture. What motivates people to act differently is because they have different kinds of culture. To put it further, go to the next one. Now I wanted to not alone give you certain clues, but I wanted to tell you how is that we will reach this idea of Indians have different kind of culture and different set of action. Now if you look at the recent or any day, in last 20-30 years, the discussions in the newspaper and any media circulation or your day-to-day dealings, what is that one of the biggest threat that you would undergo? The biggest threat that you would see in your life is about caste system in India. People would label caste system as one of the most dangerous things that India is suffering with. Now let's try to look at what are the kinds of things that it does. People argue that caste system produces some kind of an order, and it is part of everyone's life, starting from someone being very spiritual to someone doing, whether he eats garlic or whether he eats something, etc., everything is controlled by caste system. Okay. There are many things that people have written about. But what is interesting about it is that nobody has explained what are those principles which are actually making the caste system. Some people would argue that there are Varna which is generating caste system, but nobody has shown how Varna is related to caste system. Some people say castes are organized on the basis of, jatis are organized on the basis of certain occupations. But nobody is able to show any relationship between the occupation and the jati. So there are a whole bunch of jatis for which you don't know what occupation to associate with. So therefore, the theories of caste system that we have, they are neither indigenous because they are last 200, 300 years. Earlier we never wrote any theory about caste system. Indians never bothered to write such theories about caste system. Nor they have anything to offer because they don't explain the principle of social organization, which is caste system. Nor they give any idea of how to solve any crisis that exists around. This is one kind of an enigma. Go to the next one. Now, what these jati, caste groups do. The only thing that at the maximum that you can say at this point in time is that there are certain do's and certain don'ts that each jatis have. What should not be done, whom you should get married, whom you should not get married, what you should eat, what you should not eat, when you should perform puja, when you should not. I mean, these are set of prescriptions of action is what you find out of jati. Now, see, there are many people who argue that all these prescriptions of do's and don'ts have some justification and reasoning. But if you want to actually make an analysis of from which text how to justify this, you will be lost in a complete blank space. So there appears at least that there is no justification and reasoning. As I asked you the earlier question, you Ganpati Abba yak ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, I mean, till someone asked you in your high school or maybe in your college, it never occurred to you that why should you really do Ganpati Abba? You were really happy in doing it. I mean, you're part of it, you enjoyed it and you modified it, whatever you were doing. So now, I mean, it's very interesting even to say that, okay, we don't have justifications, we don't have reasons, at least they give you certain moral guidelines on what to do, what not to do. If you by chance take this statement seriously, there is also a problem because what is good for one jati is not good for another jati. See, there are certain jatis which are vegetarian. They say Pranayate Mahababa. There are certain jatis which are non-vegetarian. For them, eating animal is a right thing. Certain jatis says, no, only fish is allowed, others are not allowed. There are a whole bunch of complicated ways. So, what is right and what is wrong in one simple thing about whether to kill an animal becomes unresolvable issue. Forget about all other issues. ತಾಳಿ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಮದುವೆ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ, ತಾಳಿ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕಾ, I mean, all these questions, if you start raising, you will be lost completely in an area where you don't know where to come out. So this is how they are. So there seems to be a complete confusion to people who are interested in explaining all these things. But there seems to be a way in which consistently people have been doing this. So there must have been an alternative way in which people have understood these actions. Maybe they might not have theorized about it, but they are doing it because they have been doing it. Go to the next one. Interestingly, okay, there are people who have tried. Okay, fine, people might not know, but there are certain social institutions. For example, see, in modern day, see, in a democratic state, people might not know what are rules, but the judiciary and police jointly control and communicate to you what is right and what is wrong in performing certain action. So in Europe, for example, there was church, which used to tell you what is right action, what is not. No, but there was no such authority. ಮಠಗಳಿದ್ವು, ತುಂಬ ಮಠಗಳಿದ್ವು, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಜಾತಿಯವರಿಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮಠ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಥರ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ, ಬಟ್ ನೋಬಡಿ ಗೇವ್ ಎನಿ ಸಚ್ ಮಾರಲ್ ಪ್ರಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಒಬ್ಬರೇ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಹತ್ರ ಎರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಜಾತಿಯವರ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಕಳಿಸ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಫಾರ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ there used to be completely different kind of answer. If you look at Buddha's conversation with his students, for the same question he would have given 7-8 answers, depending upon who is asking those questions. So there seemed to be no authority or institution which controlled all these, jatis. So nobody seemed to be understanding how are they really controlled. Now, so in some sense, the absence of this knowledge about ನಾವು ಯಾಕೆ ಹೀಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು, this absence is not supplanted by any authorities. So then why one could wonder, see, look, you don't understand what are the principles firstly of governing this caste system which is supposed to be so central to Indian society. Secondly, you don't understand why there are do's and don'ts prescriptions which are given by jati. Thirdly, you don't see any institutions which control all these jati. Now, see, I have introduced this story not to really make you a scholar on jati, but using this I want you to take somewhere else. I wanted to get back to the idea of action. So, from this digression I am going back to the story now. Next slide. See, one could argue. No, you go to the next slide. You don't need to. Okay. Now, if you rethink about this story that I have narrated about jati, one could simply say that minimally what one could claim is that for thousands of years jatis do exist, and thousands of years they have faced many onslaughts, So there was Islamic invasion, there was British colonialism, there were a lot of catastrophe, there were a lot of internal fights. They managed to survive. They started adapting to each new changing condition. So therefore what you could argue is for thousands of generations, these people seem to have some kind of a knowledge which is being transmitted from generation to generation about how to act in a particular way. That is what at the maximum that we can make a claim about. Go to the next one. So now, if you say that if there is a, go to the next one. If there is a continuation of this knowledge from one generation to another generation, it's a business of thousands of people being participating and learning to do certain actions. Now, if that is the case, now you can discuss later, I guess. Okay. So, if that is the case, now one could ask this question: how is that people have learned to transmit this knowledge over generation to generation? Who taught them? How did they remember? What made them to actually maintain this kind of a knowledge? I mean, these are the questions which would actually make us understand that why Indians take certain actions extremely seriously. Like, say for example, Ganpati Puja. Okay. Now, if you simply instead of doing a great research about it, if you take a survey of what you do, because all of you belong to some jati or the other, all of you are familiar with some kind of ritual practice or the other. If you think about what you have done in your past, till yesterday, till today morning, then what you would realize is that there are customs, there are laws, there are stories, there are a whole bunch of other things which are being transmitted. And these are the means, these are the vehicles through which people have sustained their practices and their rituals. I mean, this is what research also tells us. Then, there is something inherent about these kind of laws, storytelling, etc. amongst Indians that which makes them to learn certain kind of actions. Now, for example, I don't know how many of you know about this Satyanarayana Kathai. How many of you have gone and participated in Satyanarayana Puja? Okay, so most of you are familiar. So now there is this process. They will do some Mangalarati, and there is this. Your parents will be pressurizing you to come and sit and listen to that story. Someone would sit and read that story, and whether you like it or not, you are compelled to listen to that story. And if you look at that story, I mean, you feel like laughing, but still you would be seriously listening to that story and what that story consists of. That story doesn't tell you anything other than certain prescriptions of what to do, how to do Satyanarayana Puja. If you don't do, what happens? If you do this, what happens? I mean, most of the stories that you hear about, ನೀವು ಯಾಕೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಸೇಮಂತಗೋಪಖ್ಯಾನ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕತೆ ಓದಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯು ಟು ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಅಂದರೆ, ನೋಡಿ, ಚೌತಿ ದಿನ ಚಂದ್ರನ ದರ್ಶನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ವರ್ಷ ಇಡೀ ಅಪಮಾನ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Irrespective of the fact that whether it is an empirical claim, whether it is true or not, I mean, that's not your concern, but that becomes a motivation for you to sit and listen to it, and you do it very seriously. And in between, it's not that you are very attentive to listen to that story. In between, there are a lot of chit-chatting and a lot of joke cracking, etc. Everything will be happening, but yet you are familiar with the story. And at the end of the day, what the stories tell you is about some kind of a model of what to do, what not to be done. I mean, this is what you are familiar with. And this kind of storytelling also, for example, if you listen to the description, you don't follow everything that is being told in that story. But it gives you an idea of how to do this Swarnagauri Vrata. It tells you how to do this Siddhivinayaka Vrata. Now, on this, you make certain modification and continue to do this process of doing rituals. Okay, this is how you get engaged. So, as a consequence, Indians have this very interesting kind of habit. For example, you can go back to your own personal experiences of your day-to-day life. See, Europeans have this mesmerizing problem with Indians. They come and, did you have cough? No. Any European would expect you to give an answer of saying yes or no. But most often, answer given by an Indian will not be of yes or no kind. See, you know what happened? Morning I was coming from there, so I saw SLV there. You know, there, the South Indian filter coffee, you know. See, that sugarless milk, you know. So you will have a story being told. I mean, it's very difficult to get yes or no answers from Indians. And yeah, but for that matter, did you have lunch? I mean, a very simple question. No, I mean, amongst Indian, if you say, did you have lunch? If you just say yes, people say there is something wrong with this guy. I mean, you need to really tell a story. You know what happened today? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪುಳಿಯೋಗರೆ ಉಪ್ಪು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿತ್ತು. You see, otherwise this whole, so there is an inherent way in which we actually talk about. And if you think about the way in which we talk about, is that we actually keep reconstructing the kind of actions that we do. I mean, we think that we are doing a very big claim and we are very precise, we are very accurate, etc. and you are answering, but we are not. We are constructed in such a beautiful way that Indians are inherently beautiful storytellers. I mean, it's a big problem for Europeans to understand why these people, because for Europeans, saying an exaggerated story is equivalent to moral corruption. Because you need to give a factual description, is what they do. Europeans, Indians have, I work with an American postdoc who was a Protestant, and it used to be funny. I mean, we used to spend 12 to 13 hours a day together, and every question that you used to ask, he would be expecting one-liners from me. And for me, the shortest answer would be 5-liners to 10-liners. And for him, it would be like 2 words is good enough for him. And his answers used to be of that kind. It used to be 2 words, 3 words, and we could not. So there is a different way in which we think and configure the nature of action around us. So for us, interestingly, telling stories and creating stories, we make stories out of nothing. So you need not, nobody takes those seriously. But you keep making stories, and this is inherently our habit. And this is something to do with the nature of learning that we have inherently imbibed. Okay? Now, if you look from this angle, what is the idea of culture? Idea of culture is about how do you learn to go about the world around you. And when you view from this angle, you are familiar with many things around you. Because you deal with people of your jati, people of your village, people of your extension, and you deal with different adults, old people, you deal with children. So with all of them, you keep learning and correcting certain things. And how do you correct? Nobody gives you prescription of what to do, what not to do. Even my parents don't tell you what to do, what not to do. They will also tell you they will tell you one story. And using that story, you actually keep inferring action. There are occasions where if you are too dirty, then they will say, you should not do this. But with possible exception of these extreme actions, generally our life were learned in a very different way. So go to the next one. So this kind of learning is not about triviality, but what we must understand is that human beings are not genetically predisposed, or they have certain human beings do not have an innate ability to learn in one particular way or the other. They have ability to learn. But what do they learn is exactly from which culture they belong to. Now, instead of someone being born in India, if someone is born somewhere else, he will have a completely different set of practices and ideas about the world than he would have been born in India. I mean, these are the kind of differences it says. Go to the next one. So this means that most of our learning to act and to deal with the world are significantly constructed by the culture. And both this culture and the kind of learning that we engage with have a tradition. Because ಕತೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ಹಬ್ಬ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಜ್ಜನ ಕಾಲದಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಜ್ಜ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು ಅಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಅಜ್ಜನ ಕಾಲದಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರ ಅಜ್ಜ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಅಜ್ಜನ ಕಾಲದಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. I mean, see, it goes on. So there is a history. And there is also a tradition. So, ಈಗ ನೀವು ಮದುವೆ ಮನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೋದರೆ you will see always there will be fight between 2 parties. ಏನು ಇದು ಕೆಂಪು ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಬೇಕು, ಹಳದಿ ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ ಉಪಯೋಗ. ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹಳದಿ ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ ಶುಭಕ್ಕೆ ಬಳಸಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಂಪು ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ. These are the issues in which people intend to compete and try to look at. So in this way, the nature of engaging and learning and dealing with things are actually constructed by the culture to which you belong to. Because if someone who comes from Europe and sees a marriage, ಏನಪ್ಪ ಇವರು ಕೆಂಪು ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ ಹಳದಿ ಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಸೆಟಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಇಟ್ ಲುಕ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಸೂಪರ್ಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಟು ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. ವೆದರ್ ಈಗ ಸಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಸೇ a Smartha Brahmin gets married to a Madhva Brahmin. So ಎಲೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟು ಪಾಯಸ ಬಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾ ಉಪ್ಪು ಬಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾ, ದಿಸ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ದ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್. Now all these kinds of issues are trivial for somebody outsider, but they are very serious issues for people who are part of a particular culture. So what you value as an important aspect of your life is something is actually constructed by the kind of culture. See, then you will ask, ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಉಪ್ಪು ಹಾಕೋದು ಸರಿಯಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕೆ ಪಾಯಸ ಹಾಕೋದು ಸರಿ ಅಂತ. I mean, if you get into the debate, you will never find a justificatory answers. ಯಾಕೆ ಹಿಂಗಾಗಿತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಆಂಜನೇಯ ಇದ್ದಾನಲ್ಲ ಆ ಪ್ರಾಣದೇವರು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕತೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರು, ಯಾಕಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪ್ಪು ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ನಾವು ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆದರ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಬಿಲೀವ್ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ ಯು ಸಮ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಅನ್ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ರಿಯಲಿ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಅಂಡ್ ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ವೆರಿ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ಫೋರ್ one thing one could easily understand is that learning is an important element of culture. If you want to say what is culture, culture is a set of learnings that you learn. It's about learning to learn and learning to teach, because you pass it on to generation. I don't know how do we learn, because nobody tells us that you should pass it to your next generation, but we pick it up and we teach it to our next generation. So it is about learning to learn and learning to teach things. And if you want to think in this background, ask this question, that why Indians do not care for traffic signals. Why is that the environmental crisis does not really haunt Indians? Why is that water conservation is not a serious issue for Indians? It's not that they don't consider it serious. I mean, many people think that it's an extremely serious crisis, but they don't know what to do, because the kind of action that you recommend them are not convincing them enough to take them, own them and act. So therefore, if you want to really think about making these people act, you should know by giving what set of action people would participate in doing that. Go to the next one. Now to get an idea of why certain action does not work and why certain things work, you need to get an idea of cultural difference. Now it's very difficult to explain what really constitute the cultural difference, but I make this contrast because in the context of this garbage management that you were discussing just in the previous session, most of the kind of recommendation that you talk about are the set of ideas which work perfectly in Europe. They have been quite successful in managing their garbage and solid waste, etc. in Europe, whereas in China and India you can't handle it. It is the same kind of tested, worked out solution in Europe. It doesn't work here. Why is that it doesn't work here? Is that a simple fact that these are certain prescriptions of actions which are suited to people of a particular kind of culture, and it doesn't fit into them. It is not that there is anything wrong in the prescription. Mind you, I am making this distinction. These prescriptions are perfect, they are scientific, and they are very legitimate, they need to be practiced. It's just the fact that they do not convince and motivate our people to take them very seriously, because they don't buy it. Simply because they don't think that it is part of their action knowledge that they have. So if you want to make this understand, now I wanted to show, as opposed to Europe, how Indians are different culturally and what makes this difference into cultural difference. Maybe it will come in the next slide, but I will tell you. See, if you look at people, see, there are certain jatis who do not use garlic at their place. There are certain jatis where they use garlic. Okay, it's a simple example. Now, whether using or not using garlic is part of the cultural difference is a very interesting kind of question, and we believe that they are cultural difference. They are not. And they are differences which are social, because people within one jati just do not use garlic, and people in another jati, they're part of the same culture, because their idea of learning does not change. It's just that they choose to do different kinds of action, but they behave in a very same way. Therefore, what affects their idea of learning is what makes the cultural difference. To give you an example, what makes the cultural difference, you look at the garage mechanics in India and Europe. See, if you take a car in an established garage in Europe, he cannot deal with your car a garage mechanic cannot deal with your car until and unless you give them his manual. He needs a manual. He needs to know what is the structure of the vehicle, and then he had to repair. Most of our garage mechanics in India don't need, I mean, you give them manual, they just can't understand it. How did they learn it? Because the way in which Indians do learn is about you go and deal with an established mechanic, established automobile engineer, and he will be asking you to do all sorts of work, and you learn it. You learn by mimicry. You learn by imitating. Say, for example, if you look at people, how do the people write poetry? They don't study about what is a poetry, what is a poem, etc. They will go and see, okay, this man writes perfect poems. I will imitate him in writing the poetry. I mean, this is precisely what we do. How do we, for example, score highest marks in our exams? We buy guides. We don't need textbooks. Aren't you guys buying guides? You guys. Seriously, because 10 years question paper of GATE exams, and then sit and go, which is the best in the market, solve